Well, let's speak now to Jonathan Conricus, who is a former international IDF spokesperson and a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defence of Democracies, who joins us from Tel Aviv. Welcome to you, Jonathan. Thank you for being with us. We spoke to you around the same time last night as events were starting to unfold. Now we know the scale of the Iranian attack. What's your assessment of their operation?
Well, thank you for having me again. I think that Iran tried, and they tried quite seriously to inflict damage on Israel, and they failed miserably in this attempt. Unprecedented in scale, both the attack and also the success in defending. And I think it will be a lot of studies in international war colleges, in air defense schools around the world, how to defend effectively against missiles. And I'm very happy about that, and I'm very happy and thankful for international support. Now, where this leaves Israel is with a dilemma, because this aggression, I think, cannot go unanswered. And the question is how to answer it best from an Israeli perspective. Israel has the option here of, shall we say, translating the currency from an Iranian currency to perhaps focusing on getting more international support on finishing the job in Gaza. That's one option. And the second option would be to focus on Iran itself, to focus on the source of much of what is wrong in the Middle East and much of the violence and terrorist activity in the Middle East, which is coming from Iran. And what really I think is the key here for Israel, to get American support or at least approval to go at it and to address the very serious topic we have here, Iran, and then to have a strategy in place where it's not only about retaliating for the sake of retaliating, but it's retaliating as part of a strategy in order to, in my mind, undermine Iran's ability to continue to hold Israelis hostage with their proxy organizations along our borders.
So let's break those things down. You talk about gaining international support. As Lise was just saying, the US, President Biden has said we are committed to defending Israel, but has said we would not be part of any response the Israelis do. We've heard the G7 just in the past couple of hours urging restraint. What kind of international support would you think that Israel needs to go after Iran, as you put it?
Well, I think that the only thing that's really needed as an essential is U.S. support and approval. That is what really Israel relies on. Anything beyond that is great. And I think that we saw lives saved yesterday, civilian and probably military lives saved in Israel yesterday, thanks to a more regional and global support by the UK and France and others. And by the way, Jordan as well. So I think the more the better. The bare minimum would be the US. And I don't think that Israel is asking for anybody to do its fighting. Israel is very happy and accustomed to fighting on itself, by itself, in defense of its own civilians. So I don't think that Israel is asking for French or UK or US servicemen to be in harm's way, not at all. But what Israel needs is a coalition. And I think that there is an opportunity here for a better and more peaceful Middle East, because much of the unstabilizing actions that Iran has been doing can be folded back and undone if Israel is clever enough to build a regional coalition with the Saudis, with Jordan, with Emirates, of course, under American leadership, aimed at changing the balance.
But any focus on Iran would, in the short term at least, lead to a lot more instability, the prospect or possibility of a far wider war dragging in many other countries. When you say focus on Iran, what do you think that should look like? What would an operation against Iran, in your view, do to be effective?
Well, I think that Iran, for way too long, for decades, has enjoyed almost impunity while it has funded, armed, and equipped proxy organizations, and it has very successfully, from an Iranian point, built really a virtual noose around Israel's neck, with Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza, dozens or more than 10 different proxy organizations in Syria, and they're trying to destabilize Jordan as well. For far too long, this has been going on, and Iran hasn't really been forced by Israel to pay a price for that. And as long as Iran will continue to enjoy
But
this
what does that
impunity,
price look like? Is it attack on an Iranian
right?
soil when we've heard Iran say today that any retaliation would receive a far stronger response from them?
Well, I would caution the Iranians. I think that the day after they fired more than 300 missiles and rockets, the best, almost all of the best type of weapons that they have in their arsenal, to be talking about making stronger attacks, I would choose my words more carefully, and I wouldn't be as
Okay.
belligerent as that statement. They tried, they failed. Now Israel will retaliate, and I think that the targets that would be the most appropriate ones would be the targets that allow Iran to fund their regional campaign of terror and instability.
Okay.
The targets that through which Iran generates money. And Iran is very reliant on the export of oil and of petrochemical products. They use that money not for the benefit of the Iranian people, but they use it in order to fund and arm proxy organizations that are aimed at Israel. They're aimed at the US. They're aimed at Saudi. And I think that it is high time that Iran is being held accountable for their destabilizing activities in the Middle East. And probably Israel will have to do the early stages of it.
Jonathan Conricus, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.